Hey, family and friends of Ashland, I trust that you are doing well, and I gotta tell you that making this video is one of the most exciting things I've done in the past multiple weeks now. We are excited about being able to share with you some thoughts, as now we have a target date of reopening the buildings of Ashland, at least for Sunday morning services. That's a welcome sight for me. I really hope that you are anticipating being able to come back together in this place and worshiping and serving together. Now, if I was to say that I knew all of the answers and I knew exactly how that this should play out, I probably wouldn't be telling you the whole truth. We've never navigated through a situation like this, but with much prayer and seeking of counsel and discussions with local pastors, and I'll be honest with you, our conversation has even extended to the Christian Law Association, and we have consulted with the Norwood Board of Health to make sure that we are at least covering our bases, because here's the biggest thing for me. We want to, first of all, protect our church members and the people that will be attending beginning June 7 and forward. We don't want this to become a place where we were inadequate in preparations and we haven't done things appropriately. You know, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 14 verse 40 that we're supposed to do everything decently and in order. And so for a couple weeks now, if not longer, we've had multiple discussions and Zoom calls trying to make sure that we have thought all of these processes through, and the deacons are on board with what I'm getting ready to roll out to you as well. And so I'm excited to be able to do this, but also not only do we want to protect our people, but we also want to provide an environment that is worry-free as best as possible, so that you can come in and you can not have the distractions in the back of your mind, and so that you can fully focus on your worship and on your attentiveness to God's Word. So we're doing all the legwork. We want to communicate that to you in hopes that we can eliminate some of the fears and anxiety that you might feel coming back into a public gathering. Now let me ask you this, and hopefully by now you have received a document that looks like this. It has our logo at the top, and it says immediately under it, Reopening Guidelines, and it has about 7 different items on either side that outline for you some of the guidelines that we are suggesting looking into the June 7th service. I wanted to highlight just most of them for you, and then if you have any questions, obviously you can post them. You're welcome to email or call me, and I will do my best to field those questions in a timely fashion. But going into June 7th, now I'll tell you this, first of all, June 7th, the service will start at our normal 10:30 time, and so it will be an abbreviated version, and yeah, it's not going to look exactly like it used to, and quite honestly, I'm just going to ask for some flexibility and for some understanding from our church people, knowing that we are not fundamentally changing what we're doing here, but practically speaking, some things are going to look and be executed just a little bit different than it used to before. What do you think that might look like then? That would be the question that would be on everyone's mind. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about was seating. We are going to continue practicing social distancing, maintaining 6 feet at least between your family and another family. The pews are going to be marked off to try to help us maintain that distancing, but as well we are going to maintain also a 20% occupation max for our auditorium. Now, the fire code seats our auditorium at 450 people, so the 20% number still should be more than enough for us to accommodate those that are comfortable with coming to worship, and even some that have vocalized a desire to come in and visit us for the first time because we've been able to join together online. So suffice it to say that our auditorium is large enough to be able to accommodate a good number of people, and so our intentions would not be to turn anyone away at the door, but we do want to maintain that distancing, and we are going to have those rows marked accordingly. As far as mask wearing is concerned, I would encourage you to consider bringing a mask and wearing it. It is not a recommendation. We will not be turning anyone away at the door if you don't have one, but masks are recommended. And here's one thing, this is the disclaimer that we've been talking about this whole time. We are suggesting, based on guidelines that have been suggested to us, that those people who are at risk or are 65 years old and older, would you just take a second thought before you return? Again, if you are comfortable with coming back and you're comfortable with the procedures that we have in place, you know that we'll welcome you with an air hug and a high five without making contact. However, if you're not comfortable with it, or your conditions that you might have health-wise should limit your attendance, know that we will still continue our online ministry. Our sermons and services will still be archived so that you can remain connected and not miss a beat when the time comes for you to return. But again, as I've emphasized so many times and simply just don't know how to say it otherwise, do not guilt yourself into thinking that somehow you're a second-rate Christian or a person of weak faith because you decide to stay home and to guard yourself or your family. Again, you might get a phone call from us, might receive a text message just checking in, but that's not to guilt you. That is simply to let you know that you were missed and that we're looking forward to seeing you back when that time comes. Please don't beat yourself up over it. Make a wise decision based on the protection of yourself and your families. The building will be sanitized. We're going to begin cleaning 2 weeks prior to the 7th to get things ready so that we, again, make sure that we have our buildings totally cleaned. If the weather allows, we're going to have all of the entrance and exit doors propped open, and that way there will be a minimal amount of people grabbing door handles and exchanging germs that way. And the same thing about the restrooms. Our service will be truncated, and so if it is at all possible, we'd encourage you to try to avoid the usage of the restrooms. They'll be clean, they'll be ready to go and available. But if at all possible, we are asking the people try to minimize the trips to the restroom. Again, just trying to maintain distancing, trying to limit the amount of germs that are spread. Sanitizer is going to be available in every place that we can possibly put one, and as long as we are able to obtain the sanitizer, we will get as much out there as possible, and we'd encourage a frequent usage of it, especially upon entrance of the building and exiting as well. Student ministries, nursery, and kids ministries will all be suspended for the time being. Now, one of the attachments that you'll find either in the email that you received or hopefully attached to this video will be also our 4-phased approach at reopening the ministries here. As we are outlining phase 1 specifically right now, we are focusing simply on emphasizing the reopening for Sunday morning services. That would exclude Sunday school, that would exclude nursery, children's church, and student ministries as well. So we would ask that the kids all sit with their families and not spread out across the auditorium. And parents, we are especially putting some responsibility back on your shoulders, and we simply request that you help us by keeping your kids around you, making sure that they're not, and you know me by well enough by now that we're going to have to focus on this with my family too. So I'm not asking anything that we're not going to try to do ourselves, but we want to limit the amount of adventuring that the kids are doing across the buildings, again, so as to maintain distancing standards and also to try to limit the spread of germs. Again, some of the service elements will be changed. For the time being, we will not observe communion so that the passing of the elements is not a part of our service. We'll look forward to resuming that as soon as possible. We will have giving stations available at the back of the auditorium. At each giving station will be a deacon making sure that they can draw your attention if you're trying to find one. But again, we don't want to pass the plates and have a bunch of people touching the plate and sharing germs that way. Hospitality practices will be limited. We ask that you, again, refrain. Listen, I know for some of you this is tough and this might be even borderline sacrilegious, but refrain from your hugs. I know it's been a while. What you do in the parking lot or on your own time, I cannot speak to that. But as far as practices that are observable here in the buildings, we ask that personal or contact between people would be limited, if not totally excluded, again, just to avoid any type of spread of an unwanted virus. So I told you things are going to look a little different, but I pray and I trust that you will feel confident in the standards that we have established, the conversations and the counsel that we have sought, and just again knowing that we are trying to do the best that we can to cover all of the bases to provide a safe but a place of free of distractions so that you can focus on your worship with your God. We are striving to do things decently in order. And again, if you've been looking forward to visit us here at Ashland, you're more than welcome to come. We would love to have you. We'd love to meet you. Just know that we are doing things a little bit different during this time of transition, so your flexibility, your patience, and your understanding would be greatly appreciated. Now, as with any of our other Facebook and YouTube videos, would you do me a favor? And this one's really kind of important. Obviously, we're not trying to create a following on this one, but we need to get this information out as much as possible. Please share this video so that if there are some who somehow missed it being posted, it will be a reminder just to take a peek at what's going on at Ashland. And again, we're looking forward to a reunion on the 7th like no other. We're hoping to have a great crowd. Nonetheless, we're looking forward to seeing God work. But we also want to make sure that we are doing so safely and wisely. Again, with all of this is established so that what I'm about to tell you is reinforced. We love you. We have missed so desperately having people inside these buildings. It's so weird. It's so awkward. It is so lonely being here by ourselves. But we are certainly excited about the possibility of coming back on June the 7th. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. This was an overview. This was certainly not the detailed list that we are using as a checklist to get ready for Sunday morning. We just want you to know that there has not been a blind eye turned towards the necessity to have policies and procedures in place in the weeks leading up to June the 7th. Well, I trust that you'll join us the next Sunday on our live stream at 9:30 for the remainder of the month of May. June 7th at 10:30 will be our first in-person service, as we've just discussed. We love you. We're looking forward to serving and worshiping with you extremely soon. So hang in there. There's still hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And we will look forward to celebrating that in the very near future.